that we verified that the CentOS machine is actually in Active Directory. Here it is. We could do properties, and you can see it says CentOS 6.5. Let's go ahead and join our SUSE system. We're gonna install the bits. In this case, we're gonna just basically do this. We're gonna do install SH. We did the native package before, so let's go ahead and do install SH. So and it's basically your typical script for installation. This can be used with an answer file as well. So we're going to do a custom installation. In this case, we're going to do a direct control package. We're not going to do NIS. We're not going to do OpenSSH. We're not going to do the LDAP proxy. We're going to install Audit. We're not going to do it in express mode. We don't need to verify our environment. We could join Active Directory right away, but in this case, we're not going to do it like that. And we're going to enable Audit in this. So let's go ahead and do the installation. So this is great for automation. So if there is any need to have a centralized repository for installations, this is a great place to go ahead and do it. So AD info, our agent is not active, so we need to join the system. I happen to recycle the system before, so I'm going to reuse the same command that I have somewhere else here, and there it is. So this is our SUSE1 system, and I'm going to put in my user's password. And again, now when we do the AD info command, notice that we join as SUSE1. And if we do an AD query user, just like we did before, there's no users because nobody should have access. We haven't provisioned anybody yet. So if I go back to Active Directory users and computers and do a refresh, at this point I should see my SUSE1 computer right here, and it's correctly projecting that we're running SUSE 10. Let's go ahead and make sure that now we're going to do the Ubuntu package. So this is the package is already loaded in the system, so it's not joined to any domain. We're going to do what is called a self-service join. So in this, what we do is we pre-create the computer on the access manager. So we're going to go ahead and do a pre-create the computer. In this case, my computer is called Ubu1. So I'm going to create a new computer object, and Ubu1 is going to exist in the servers container under the Unix OU, just like the other computers. We're going to do next. This is going to create basically the SPNs for Kerberos to work. Notice that we create SPNs for multiple applications, including CIFS and HTTP. We're going to allow the computer to do a self-service join, and that's it. The computer has been pre-created. If we go into Active Directory, users and computers, you will see that the object exists there, but there's no information about this computer because it's just like a computer placeholder. So just like you do when you join a Windows computer with a 2-turn key, where the administrator pre-creates the machine and maybe a help desk person will actually do the join, we're going to do the same thing. So it would be an AD join -s and then the name of the domain. We're going to do this in verbose mode. Very simple, just like Windows. So in here, if we do AD query, AD info, now we have the computer, the Ubu computer, and AD query user doesn't yield any results. So basically what we've done, we've preloaded our machines in here. So if I do a refresh here, let's take a look at the properties of this machine now. And notice that the operating system has been correctly populated. So now we decided that we are going to have some groupings of machines. So our machines are going to show up here, but for authorization perspective, we decided that, and let's take a look in here, that our CentOS 1 is a web system. So all we need to do is go ahead and grab our CentOS system and drop it into the web servers. This will make it a web server. And that our SUSE system is a database system. So, and that will make it a database system. And just because we've made a change the computer membership, put the computer in a security group in AD. In the Windows world, you typically have to reboot, but in the Centrify world, all you need to do is recycle the agents. So let's go ahead and in this case, service, and we'll restart. And we're going to do the same on my Ubuntu system. All right, awesome. So now we are ready to start doing some of the actual testing, and I think we have already passed some of the criteria. So let's take a look. So not all AD users have access. This is the one that I'm looking at. So I believe that we passed this one because, you know, by virtue of me nobody having access, we demonstrated that it's not unlike Express that grants access right away. You know, we need to start adding people and creating people. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's start populating. So we decided that we're going to have all our users, and the way you provision users is by giving them a user an identity and a role. So an identity you can do either through ADOC or through Access Manager. We're going to do it through Access Manager because my user didn't have the ability to activate those things in ADOC. So we're going to add user to zone, and we're going to pick I guess George. And we're going to do find now, and yeah, that's okay. But I don't want to use the long names. I'm gonna I'm gonna delete the defaults here, and I'm gonna make the users be the first name. This is just a demo, by the way, so it's not a problem. The rest is okay for me. Notice the difference. George Constanza, .Constanza is the user in AD, but the Unix name or login name is George. So let's find. Jerry is not supposed to have access because he's the Windows administrator. So Kramer. So we're gonna make him actually not Cosmo, but let's make it Kramer. We're already introducing chaos to this whole thing. Let's find Newman. Elaine. So there you go. We've overridden the login name, so we have flexibility to override anything in that case. We've granted everybody an identity, but we have yet to grant them a role. You need the two things to be able to access the system, and the way we've defined things is by way of role assignments. We are using Active Directory groups. So let's go ahead and go into ADOC and find our RBAC roles. And I do know, according to my diagram, that that Elaine is a DBA, so we're going to add her to the DBAs group. Elaine is a DBA. George is the sysadmin who has access to all the systems. Cosmo Kramer is the web administrator. Oh, actually, members. I think we have Newman we're going to do for later. I want to test something with him. So we've actually had 3 people that represent our 3 basic groups. So let's go ahead and find out if they have access. So let's go to our systems and let's do a clear, and I do an AD query user. Oops. So in here, it's interesting. We've actually granted the access, we've given the identities, but we still can't see any users coming in. And there's a really good reason for that. And that has to do with the cache. So Centrify implements this concept of caching, and it's done for 2 things. One is high availability, and the other one is performance. So high availability meaning that even if I have not, if I don't have connectivity to AD, I can still log into the machine and do the things that I'm defined to do. But before you don't have access to AD, that's a scenario of a disaster. Let's walk through scenarios. So the first scenario is you can't find a domain controller. And let's do an AD info. And in here, notice that it says that it's choosing a preferred site. This is really important because what it says is that the agent is sites aware. So if there's a domain controller that goes down, we were talking to it, and then it went to get a service pack, we're going to pick a nearest domain controller in the site. If there's no domain controllers on the site, we're going to go to another site to pick a domain controller. And then there's this is the mode where it says connected or disconnected. But when you talk about things like this, there's an interesting trade-off because the changes in LDAP, we don't go out and check LDAP all the time for changes. This is bad for the main controllers because each LDAP connection uses CPU and memory. So this, in the fact that we have a cache, promotes also high performance. But the cache by default is going to work every 36 seconds. So enter the AD flush commands. Typically, there's not many add moves or changes, so the flush interval could be as high as twice a day. It all depends on how many add moves or changes are done. But in my particular case, because we're in supposedly a speed run for this, I'm going to use the AD flush command. So AD flush, what it does is basically goes out, checks in AD if there's any changes. So we're going to do a DZ do, we're going to do an AD flush. So let's go ahead and do that. And if we repeat and do the AD query user command, now we should see in this particular system, we will always see George because George happens to be the sysadmin. So the role assignment that we did was at the highest level. But Kramer happens to be DBA. Therefore, he can log into this, actually a web administrator, he can log into the CentOS. So if I go to my database system, let's do the AD query user. We're going to have to do the AD flush. I should see Elaine and as well as George because Elaine happens to be the DBA and George is a sysadmin, so she has access to all computers. So here you go, Elaine and George. And if I go to my my utility system, which I have not finished doing something in there, AD flush, and let's do an AD query user. I should see everybody because this computer happens to be a utility system, so everyone's going to be here. Notice that not everybody's there because I have yet to do something here. So only George should have access. I have not explicitly granted access to anybody. So you know what? Because this is going to be a filer, let's go ahead and do that role assignment right away. So I'm going to make it Samba user. So let's create a group first. So we're going to use the other Unix model, Samba users. So let's think about this for a second. I have the AD group already. So the role, Samba users should not log into the system. They should be able to access through Samba, but they should be known to the system, so the system knows the UID GID. So there's a pre-created role that Centrify has, is called the listed role. So if we look at role definitions, in here you have a listed role. All that it does, it allows you to to be known in the system. So why don't we go ahead and grant the listed role at the highest level. This is a utility server, and we're going to grant it to that group that we created. So the listed role is going to be granted to my Unix, and let's go ahead and find a group here, Samba users. The group has not been populated yet, so I'm going to go ahead and populate it. I can populate it from here. This is going to launch the properties of the group, and let's add George. We're going to do also Elaine, and we're also going to do, let's rethink this for a little bit. I'm better off, instead of doing this, because if I do it at this level, everybody's going to be listed everywhere. So I'm going to delete this assignment. I am better off creating a new computer role and putting my Samba servers there, now that I think about it. So let's go ahead. Or filers. Here you go. So let's create a group. And let's call it, the container is going to be same RBAC. Let's go ahead. And it's going to be Unix. So the reason why I'm calling it filers is because you know what, let me just call it NFS and Samba. That way makes more sense. And I'm going to go ahead and drop my computer, my Ubuntu computer there. Now I can make sure that people are listed in this system, because if I had done it at this level, they would have been listed in all computers, and that may be undesirable, especially when it comes to groups. So the system is there. We need to do the role assignment now. So let's assign the role, and let's use the listed role. We're going to add account, group account, Unix. And Samba users in my particular case, and let's populate it. So we're going to populate it with everybody. George, Elaine, our friend Kramer, and I'm missing somebody. George, Elaine, Cosmo. I think it's okay. All right. So now let's go back to our Ubuntu system. We changed the membership of the machine, so we need to cycle the agent. So service. All right, and if we do an AD flush and do AD query user, here it is. Everybody's there. So let's take a look at rights. We can take a look at rights from here. So show me what people can do. DZ info is a command, tells me what people can do. Elaine, in this case, she's just basically a listed person. Let's take a look at what Elaine can do. Actually, she's not even listed in here because she's a DBA. Let's take a look at what she can do over there. So DZ info Elaine. So she you can log in through SSH and do things that I've defined as a DBA. All right. Let's take a look at what our friend George can do. He has two roles probably. He has the Unix sysadmin as well as the listed, and he can run any command as root and log in through any PAM application. Let's take a look at our friend Kramer, and Kramer is a web administrator, and he can do all those things. So now pretty much we've we know that our users are ready to start accessing systems. So why don't we go ahead and start testing that. So let's go to the CentOS 1 system, do a new session, and let's take a look. So let's log in as George. So let's take a look at this. There's something that is not working. I need to fix that, but so first time he's logging in, hey, your ID password is gonna log in and expire in 21 days. So one thing that I need to do is fix the challenge response because the prompts are not coming out the way we want. So it's a good idea to take it for a ride. So DZ info, I am can run any command as root, so I should be able to do DZ do is Centrify enhanced sudo. So I should be able to do DZ do and do via to etc ssh sshd sshd config. Okay, etc ssh, there you go. So let's see. First time, I'm giving you the lecture. So let's find challenge. So challenge response is disabled. We're gonna go ahead and enable it. And this is good. So DZ do service SSHD restart. Alright, so let's take a look. Let's duplicate the session. Actually, let's close these out. So if we go and do and there's our prompt, with more information there. So let's walk through our testing here. So I was able to log in with my user in AD. So let's go ahead and take a look. So I did not do any schema extensions or software and domain controllers. If we're using PAM, so let's take a look. So the Centrify modules are implemented as NSS and PAM. So let's do cat etc and do a grep. Alright, so notice that we are a provider for password, shadow, and group files. So it's all using frameworks. The other thing would be, so let's take a look at system off. So notice that in here, this is the lines that are inserted by Centrify. So Centrify uses basically the PAM framework in Unix to implement the authentication. That is why, although my user George, is here, if I cat the etc password file and try to find George, you won't be able to do that because he doesn't exist in the etc password file. And if I do something like get tent, and then I'll get that, I'll get George right there coming from an NSS provider. So we're using frameworks, Kerberos, we are using Kerberos authentication in the back end. So the best way to do that is to maybe disable George. So why don't we go ahead? I think we would have to go to Jerry to actually go ahead and disable George. So let's take a look. If I try to do it as him, he doesn't have any access. So let's take a look. Let's log out George.
You have to see him on a burning day. Folks, isn't it, Harry? The burst into flame.
So let's go ahead and disable George, but we have to launch ADOC as our friend Jerry. So let's go ahead and launch that as So in here, I'm going to go ahead and disable George. And let's try and do this. So unlike an LDAP change, these transactions are done in lines. So if I want to go on and duplicate the session and log in as George, this is an inline transaction. So I'm going to get access denied right away because the user doesn't have the rights to log in because his account is disabled. Other ways where we can prove this is by going out and maybe modifying actually, where's my other Active Directory user and computers? Oh, right here. So going out and maybe changing the logon hours for this guy. So if I go and I set him up to maybe log in at different hours. So let's take a look. So we go account and log on hours. Maybe we want to only allow him to log in Sundays, right? And let's go ahead and basically deny the rest of the time. Since today is actually this would do it because Monday is already done and today's Monday. But let's go ahead and do it. So I changed the logon hours for this guy, right? And if I want to go ahead and log in, the account is actually enabled again, so we should be fine. So let's take a look and duplicate the session, and it will be our friend George. And in this case, I'm going to get access denied anyway because the user doesn't have the right to log in at this time. Let's go ahead and fix them. And that proves that we can control not only logon hours, but accounts being enabled, disabled through Active Directory. And let's take a look. So the account, let's give this guy back his logon hours. Actually, I'm looking at Jerry, I should be looking at George. So let's go ahead and re-enable this guy. Okay, so the user has changed in ID. So if we go back to this, actually this shouldn't work. It should be cached, but let's go ahead. See, it's not accessed at this time. Let's duplicate the one. Alright, so he's good. So let's see. This satisfies this actual requirement here that users can be done like this. Also, we're not synchronizing any passwords. This is good because synchronization always breaks. And integrating systems can be done through the GUI command line. We already did that with AD join, and we did the self-service join. Policy, let's take a look at policy. So what's our policy here? What's the most important policy? Typically the password policy. So if we go to group policy management and take a look at the default domain policy, and let's go ahead and edit. Actually, we can't do it with this guy. Let's take a look maybe with this guy. Oh, this guy can't do it. It's gotta be Jerry. But I can tell you that most of the time, by default, complexity is enabled on default domains, and there's at least 7 characters. But let's verify it. So actually, our installation finished, so let's go ahead and finish that. And let's take a look at the default domain policy. And you know what? We could just go here and take a look at the details. So this report should tell us how's the policy. So it should be under computer configuration, policies. Let's see, show all. Actually, I should be looking at this guy. So security settings, and we have password policy. So it's set to 7 characters, complexity enabled. So if I wanted to be a bad citizen as George, I could just go and say password and say, see, the prompts that we put in are actually working. And my new ID password, let's try and do ABC123. ABC123, 6 characters, and very simple. ABC123. And in here, we're going to get this message that basically says, hey, you know, the password does not meet the policies defined in AD. So what's the benefit to organizations? That you don't have to deal with that anymore. You don't need to have to deal with human users and the password policy. So that takes care of policy. So let's take a look at multiple identities can be assigned to a same AD user. So this can be done in different ways, but let's go ahead and do it in a way that is not very nice, because this type of flexibility can be trouble as well. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to override the George's identity in the Ubuntu box. So every node has its own Unix data, and I could actually go and to users. So at the zone level, George is just George with a long UID. But if I wanted to override at the computer level, I could just do it in a computer. And maybe I just want the UID to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this system. So let's go ahead and override 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is good flexibility, but having so much flexibility can be a bad idea as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do, in my Ubuntu system, I'm going to do an AD flush. So if I do an AD query, notice that the George's UID is 11,49412, so and so, right? It is actually this one right here. But I went to the machine and I did an override at the Ubuntu machine level. All I need to do is, in this case, because overrides at the local level typically require, because there are exceptions, they typically require cycling of the agent. And I'm going to do an AD flush just in case. If I run that command again, and I'm going to leave the output there. Notice now that if we compare the outputs right here, George used to be this long UID, but now he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a lot of flexibility. But when we're thinking about a deployment, what could go wrong by doing this? Some people actually do a lot of overrides, and that it ends up biting them in the future because you want a unified identity at the end. The fact that you can have a disjointed namespace is not a good idea, especially if there's filers or if you have an acquisition. So it's always good to put yourself some sort of limitation, because a lot of flexibility brings about a lot of potential trouble. So yes, you can bind as many identities as you want to a user, but by no means it means it's a good idea. It may be a good idea in the short term, but it may cause problems in the long run. So and let's do the AD flush. I actually deleted that identity because we want to keep things nice and tidy here. So again, this meets the ability to have multiple identities. So secondary groups, we have a requirement to have a couple of secondary groups. Let's take a look. So my group, let's take a look at the diagram. So it says 2 groups required: DBA admin, web admin with a lane inside, and one with Kramer, 123, and 124. So the process is the same. I mean, I'm doing things manually because later we're going to do them automatically anyway. But when you think about a group, you need also where are you going to put the group in a group in AD. So let's go ahead and create those groups. So in this case, they're not for RBAC, they're for secondary groups. That's why we have this OU here. Let's put this on the side so we can actually take a look. And it doesn't matter if it's Jerry or if it's George. So we're going to create this Unix, and in this case model, and is DBA admin. That's one of them, and it's going to have a lane in it. So we're going to populate it right away. So this secondary group may be needed by an application because it makes an NSS call to get the members from secondary group. You know, typical Unix stuff, right? So Unix-model, and let's do in this case web admin, and we're going to have Cosmo in here. And here we have it. So we populated our groups. All we need to do is just give them an identity on Unix. So same thing, we're going to add a group, create Unix group. We're going to find the group that we're going to use. So this is where our naming convention actually helps us. So go ahead, create Unix group, Unix, define, and it will be DBA admin. And see that GID, our requirements say that the GID is going to be 1023 for, and let's go ahead, is 10. Let's put it in 1023. Sorry, and I'm going to use only the DB admin name. I'm not interested in the whole thing, and press OK. So let's do the other one, and that one is web admin. And this is the name right here, and it's 124. And we have our groups. So we go and check them the same way. And if we do an AD query group, notice that now we have, this was really quick though. We could have probably needed to do also that. So This is in the Ubuntu box. Notice that all the groups are exposed here, right? And you can see the memberships. But if I go into, let's take a look at the SUSE box. Let's use the old way. So get tent group, and should bring me all the groups. But I want to do in this case so DBA admin it doesn't show, so we need to do an 80 flush. Again, we do the 80 flush because we want things to happen quickly. All right, so DBA admin is not being exposed, so we need to take a look at actually, of course, there's a DBA admin, 2 A's. There you go, there's Elaine right there. And let's take a look at the CentOS. This one had closed before, so let's close it out. And in here, if I do get tent group, this will be web admin. There you go, and Kramer is the member right here. So there you go. So we're also able to manage memberships through Active Directory of Unix secondary groups. So we've met that requirement as well. And SSO mechanisms. So I like to do this. We could do it a couple of ways. We could do it with Kerberos, or we could do it with GSS API. So let's first do it with GSS API. The best candidate to do this is George. So let's go ahead and do a new session. And let's take a look at the backend first. So we're going to do it to CentOS 1. So if you GSS API, generic services, security service application programming interface is a way to provide SSO, and most of the modern versions of OpenSSH support it. So this is Centrify and has PuTTY. The only difference is that it has this Kerberos tab, but regular PuTTY has this auth in here, and in here you have GSS API. So all you need to do is make sure that attempt GSS API is enabled, and the way we do it with Centrify is with Kerberos. So this won't work with the IP addresses. So I'm going to go ahead, and I actually purposely disabled it when I created the sessions. So I'm going to go ahead and check it. And this SSO is going to be very simple. Once I put in the name of the user, I'm going to get SSO. But in this case, I have to type the name. I could save it if I wanted to, but this was GSS API SSO. Very simple. The other way would be to do it with Kerberos SSO, but I'm using stock SSH in all the installations. I did not install the Centrify OpenSSH package. So to test that, we're going to put the Centrify OpenSSH. So let's go to cd temp. Notice that a lot of the things that are privileged, I'm still using George, so this proves that my user can be a super user. But this will be for later. So dz-do, in this case, Centrify DC open. And in this case, I have to do an RPM -UVH. And it's going to ask me for my AD password because when I set up the role and that command, I said, hey, this is powerful, so we need to ask people about this. So once the OpenSSH is installed, I'll be able to create another session to this machine and check the Kerberos SSO. And so you may ask yourself why Centrify, OpenSSH versus stock SSH. The OpenSSH for Centrify has been compiled with the Centrify Kerberos libraries, which in turn have been tested with Microsoft's implementation of Kerberos. So if you have a complex domain infrastructure, you're better off with that one if you want to provide SSO. If you have a simple infrastructure, you're better off with stock SSH. And you also may have other reasons why to do that, but you don't really need Centrify OpenSSH. It's just circumstantial. So let's go ahead and do a new session here. I'm gonna load the same thing here, and I'm gonna check the Kerberos box here, attempt Kerberos, and this is gonna be much easier because I already have a ticket as George, because I'm logged in as George. So I have a TGT as him. I don't even have to show that. You know, just do a klist in your prompt, and if I do open, I'm gonna get right there. So one of the cool things is that the banner is set correctly. So I'm getting more information here, but see that the Kerberos negotiation is right here. So the thing that you gain is just to delight your users a little bit. They'll be happier. And okay, so authentication and SSO mechanisms complete. Provisioning the provisioning automated. Let's leave that for last. Let's do the filer integration with Samba or NFS. So Ubuntu system is supposed to be my filer, right? So let's go ahead and go in there. But filers typically they need to know who people are, so they can basically determine, oh, who's the UID, GID, or owner of this file. What's the deal with Samba? Samba has something called winbind, and that is the ID mapper, official ID mapper for Samba, and you can set up rules on how UID, GIDs are done. But in the case of Centrify, UID, GID information is stored in the zone here. So what Centrify has done is it's created a version of Samba, in this case, that has you know, the Kerberos libraries, and it also has a daemon called the ADBind Proxy daemon. And all it does is an ID mapper that looks at the right place for identity data. So, but we need to install the Centrify Samba module for us to be able to do that. So let's go ahead and do Centrify Samba. So we're going to go ahead. So this is the packages. So you have the Samba package and the ADBind proxy. So it's as simple as doing an installation. In the case of Ubuntu, we do the pkg -i Centrify, and that will install the package. And then we do the installation of the okay, say setting out this. Okay, so we're gonna in this case we're gonna install the package maintainers version. So, and we're gonna do also the Centrify ADBind proxy installation. So it's 2 installations. And once this is installed, all we need to do is to configure the ADBind proxy, and it's very simple, just like we did before we installed the SH. So the configuration file is a Perl script, and it's in etc Centrify DC, and that would be under bin. Oh, okay. Okay, so it's actually see, on the user share, where the binaries are, not the files, the config files. So it's under bin, and it's ADBind proxy.perl. So we're gonna run this guy. So we just basically answer the questions. So the path is the path for Samba. Looking to conflict the installations. Okay, we're gonna we want to remove it. So it would be yes. Oh. Symbolic links, we want to do that. Do you want to leave and join another domain? No, we are good here. Do you want to keep your radio account Samba settings? No. I want to recreate the new ones. And you want to reset any mappings? I would say yes. And one of the things that this does is that it installs a test share. So if we go to the root, we're going to have a Samba test share. And we could actually go and test it. So let's go ahead and try and browse for this machine. It would be, hopefully the firewall is open for this. So ubu1. There you go. There's our Samba test. I'm going to put a file in here. And notice that I'm accessing from Windows. So my file, George.txt. And this is to test Samba. And my UID should be all1. And that's it. Save the file. So let's go ahead and go to the Ubuntu machine. And let's do ls-l a. And then here you can see that George is the owner. And if I do an LAN, that's the long UID that corresponds to George in the zone. So that would be it's starting with 114. That's the one that he has. It starts at 114, 9240.406, 9240.406. So this proves that identity is consistent across folders and files. And provisioning and automatic provisioning, I'm going to take a break now, so I'll record that later.